I'm very happy to be back here on our live Fringe North Roundtable, which we'll be doing once again every Thursday evening until the festival begins on August 21st. Remember to tune in weekly and join us in the chat to connect, share ideas, and discuss everything Fringe North with us. Each week we'll have some exciting guests from our amazing community of performers and creators who will give us an inside look into both their lives as an artist and what they are bringing to the festival this season. This week in our special Pride edition of the Roundtable, I'm so excited to be joined by House of Gore. So why don't I let you introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Ashley. I perform under the name Lou. I'm one of the heads of House of Gore. I'd hoped to have a couple other people here with me from the house, but things happened and I was the only one able to make it. So we've been running for almost, I think, about 6 years now in Sault Ste. Marie, both in Michigan and in Ontario. So this is our third festival season with Fringe North. We're really excited.
I'm really excited to have you back. As a bit of an icebreaker, I want to ask which of the original colors of the Pride flag and its meaning most resonates with your work. So as a reminder, they are pink for sexuality, red for life, orange for healing, yellow for sunlight, green for nature, turquoise for magic, indigo for harmony or serenity, and violet for spirit.
That's a tough one, and I should know them, and I can't remember when you listed them. I think turquoise is like magic and art, right?
Yeah.
So that would be like the go-to, right? Because drag is an art form, so that would be your go-to. But I would probably go with, for me personally, what was orange again?
Orange was healing.
That's what I thought. Okay. I would go with orange and violet for healing and spirituality because, like I said, for me personally, drag has been kind of part of like my healing journey, part of my connection with myself and the universe, and kind of coming back to who I am. And for me, it's just been a very healing and spiritual journey. So I would go with those two.
Thank you for sharing. So the first question I want to ask is why are you an artist and when did you first become one?
I think I think I'm an artist because I honestly believe that it's just part of human nature. I think everybody has a bit of artist in them. It's just a matter of how we choose to embrace that or show it or share it. Some people it's a little more internal. Um, because so yeah, I think kind of I'm an artist because everybody is. I'm more recognized as one because I take that internal connection with art and share it with the community. Um, I started writing poetry back when I was probably like 12 or 13 years old. Um, so I would probably take it back to about there. Actually, no, my in kindergarten I wrote like little short stories. My mom still has some, so I've been sharing stories since like 6 years old, 5 years old. So I would say that I've probably been an artist since then in one capacity or another.
Very interesting. Can you tell us a bit about the process of creating your work?
Um, I am very I'm not a process oriented person. Um, I know some of our house members are very process oriented and they put a lot of thought into what they're doing, what they're bringing to the stage, a lot of practice. Um, I'm operate mostly from feelings. So, um, obviously practice goes into like the makeup and the aesthetic part of it. So that I will practice and that I did practice a lot more before when I started. Now I usually only throw on drag makeup if I need to for an event or a photo shoot or something. But when I started, I would practice a lot, just kind of refining some of the skills and techniques. And we would do like that's something I would do by myself over COVID. I would do it on like Zoom calls with other drag performers or in person with others. So that part of it, I do have kind of a method and a practice. As far as like preparing something to come to the stage, it usually starts with just hearing a song that speaks to me. That can speak to me in a way that it's emotional and a personal, like I feel a personal connection to what the artist is saying in the song. It could be that, you know what, this song is just really fun and upbeat, and I think it would bring a lot of joy into the room and the space. So I hear a song I like and I'll listen to it on repeat. There's a lot of repeat listening. If sometimes I'll think it's great and I'll listen to it a few times and I'll be like, you know what? No, I can't see that on the stage. Like it's a great song. A good example of that is a lot of like the acoustics covers of songs. I love acoustic versions of songs, but they're really hard to bring to a stage when you're lip syncing and trying to like get the whole audience in. So I kind of feel out if I think it could come to the stage just through listening to it again and again. And once I decide, like, yes, this is something I want to do for the stage, I start thinking about what kind of costuming would work with it. So this could involve like last year at Fringe, I did a song called Disco Cowboy by Adam Mack. It's an amazing song. He's an amazing queer country artist, but his songs all have that kind of, most of his songs have that disco-y feel, right? So for that, I'm like, I need something that it feels disco-y, but is still modern and still queer and kind of fits all those boxes. So sometimes the song will inspire a specific outfit that I'll go and seek, and sometimes it'll just be like, you know what, this basic drag outfit in my closet should fit with it. So I pick the song, I get a feel for the song, start envisioning it on stage, get a feel for what I'll wear for it. And then I will crank my music on my drag playlist in my kitchen or my dining room, and I'll start moving through the songs. So I really suck at choreo. It's a big joke in the house. Like some of the queens will plan these like elaborate choreo numbers and be like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And I get on stage and I completely mess it up, right? But they know that I'm going to because I just don't do choreo. But what I will do is I will move through the song multiple times, seeing what feels right in it. And I'll have like a loose idea of what I want to do. I might have a couple moments in the song where like this one move, so not a full choreo, just this one move. I really like how this feels here or how this fits here. So when I go on stage, I also listen to the songs nonstop in my car. Like my kids know all of my drag songs because I have one playlist that plays on repeat when we have shows coming up. All the songs are on it. So I know the lyrics inside and out, and I know the music, and I kind of have an idea of how it feels. And then I just combine that with the audience's reactions. I try and hit the key movements that I really wanted, and the rest I just mostly improv when I'm up there. Um, so yeah, it is a process. It's just not the way I think of, practicing and doing the same thing again and again process.
Yeah, still a process, for sure. What do you feel makes your work unique and truly your own?
Um, I would say that the my own personality that I bring to um I hate to refer to Luke as a character because he's so much more than that, but um for me, Luke is like this flip side of myself. Um he is all of the good parts of me, um without any of the bad. So, and not that we all have some bad qualities, but when I say bad, I mean without the stress and the pressure of day to day life. So when we remove those parts that kind of weigh us down and keep us heavy, um, we're left with who we truly are. So to every performance and to every time Luke's face appears on mine, um, sorry, I've got some people pulled up next to my daughter that she's leaving with. Um, yeah, you can go. But yeah, so every time I bring Luke onto my face and into presence, it's a way of bringing like the best parts of myself. So that makes that unique to me because nobody else is me, right?
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to check if we have any messages from
Yeah,
community members.
I see we had a couple other people that were also going to come and things happened. So I feel like I'm like, this isn't so much as a roundtable as an interview.
It seems like not. Okay. What experience of your life would you say is reflected in your art?
I think that I bring a lot of my life experiences into my art. Um, the most prominent for me is shortly after I started performing drag. I went through a very personal journey. I had a long-term hetero marriage that ended. I was discovering my sexuality. I was discovering parts of myself that I had suppressed for 15 or 20 years. And I was just starting to explore gender, which is a given. If you're doing drag, it kind of comes with the territory. Um, but I was exploring it on more than a superficial level, than more than just the makeup on the face, really reflecting on, what parts of myself are true to myself and what parts of myself have I built or become as a response to the way I'm treated and that kind of like give and take with other people and systems as I move through the world in the female form that I was given and identified as. So I started really like I had like these major like visible life changes, like a separation and physically moving out of a home I'd had for 10 years and all of these things. But also internally, I was like doing this really big reflection on like who I am and how much of that is who I want to be and how much of that I became in response to society, and my reflection of myself in society and all of that. So that year, I that journey kind of culminated in that separation, or it started. It was all tied together very closely, and that happened actually like my separation happened on like May 31st, right before Pride season started in 2019. So that year, following that, probably most of the really personal performances that I performed in that year, um, really, really touched on those themes and touched on how I was feeling. And I used my drag numbers to kind of process that for myself and visibly process it for others who might be able to relate to it. So, well, there's a lot of things I've performed in drag that have personal meaning and connection and resonate with me. That summer of performance, and that whole year right up until December of that year, um, almost every show we did, there was at least one number that I would do in those shows that was really, really close to home and processing that journey that I was in at that time. So that would probably be the most personal um, life circumstances that would be seen in my art.
Thank you for sharing. Can I ask what kind of songs you chose for that?
Um, there's two that jump out at me in my memory. There's been so many songs over the years. It's only been 6 years, but I feel like there could be albums of songs that I've performed because there's been so many. But the two that really stick out to me, the two performances, um, the first one I did was during a Pride show that summer, and it was Pink's song "I Am Here." Um, and my now wife, who is also a drag performer and also an amazing artist in like drawing and painting and stuff, painted me rainbow wings down the backs of my arms. And I just to kind of symbolize that freedom, that flying, that I'm here. Um, Nothing else matters because I am at this point in my life, and this point is where I need to be. And So that one was a big one for me. And my mom was at that show. And again, I came out at I was like 35 and I just come out to my family, and like it was just everything was insane at that time. But my mom had come to the show, and I remember she ran on stage at the end of my number bawling and gave me this big hug. So that was the one. The other one is it's a song called I Don't Want to Be by Gavin DeGraw. It's an old song. It was like One Tree Hill opening credits way back in like the early 2000s. And I was staying with my mom at the time because I was still separated, or I had just separated and I hadn't relocated to another home or anything. And I was driving from my mom's somewhere, and she lives out in the country. So I was driving down this pretty empty road, and that song came on, and it just like I had to pull over. It just hit me so hard. The lyric of I don't want to be anything other than what I've been trying to be. And that idea of I don't want to be what I'm not. And I'm tired of following these rules that have been thrust upon me. So with that song, I had actually, and of course we exaggerate everything in drag. So I don't want people to think that I was like, you know, forced into like Susie Homemaker with like apron in the kitchen all the time. I totally wasn't. But of course we exaggerate things for drag. Um, so I had done that song, and I edited a bit in the front that was like, I don't know if it was a spoof of an old TV commercial or something, but it was one of those a woman's place, happy 1950s type commercial of like, a woman's place is in the kitchen. And remember to greet your man when he comes in from work. Um, so I had that kind of opening, and I was in an apron and very like home. I had a big long wig on and like an old style housewife's dress. Um, and so it started with that little bit, and then there was like I edited in like a record scratch, and it was like F this shit, right? And then it kicked into I don't want to be. And I, ripped off the wig and ripped off the apron and the dress, and I had a unicorn shirt on that said Majestic AF, and um, that number, I was pretty much in tears by the end of it because it felt so like cleansing and amazing to just be like, I'm who I am, and I don't want to be anything else, and I'm not going to be anymore. So
Really beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Um, how does your identity shape and inform the art that you create?
I think a lot of what I just talked about kind of falls under that category. Um, and I don't mean it to sound basic, but as in like a drag is a queer art, but drag is a queer art. It's been used for many, many years as a way of breaking gender norms, critiquing gender norms, you know, kind of saying like maybe we should look at this system in a different way. Um, so like my identity as a queer person just kind of goes hand in hand with an art form that is based on, examining queerness and examining and dissecting the cis heteronormative environment that we live in. Um, I think, like I said, I think feels like it's a very basic answer, but it just goes hand in hand. And then when I bring those personal parts of my queer journey into those songs, when I do songs that are inherently queer songs, I've recently started performing a lot of songs that are written by AFAB artists and performed by AFAB artists who are either and some of them are non-binary, but some of them identify as lesbian and are very much identify as cis women, but queer cis women. So I've been bringing more of that queer queer created music into what I'm lip syncing and what I'm performing with, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And then playing with kind of like the idea of like I feel like it's almost like this next step of gender queerness and messing with that normativity, because people will be like, but you're a king, you should be doing songs by a man, and it's like, but I don't have to. And then so there's that level when if I do a song like the one by Pink that's performed by someone who is a woman. But then when you know, add in that extra level of queerness, that it's not just, it's somebody who is, you know, a woman singing about other women, but I'm doing it dressed as a man. And I just really enjoy that.
That's so interesting. We do have a few questions from people in the community. So one is, what's your favorite poem you've ever written and how did it come to be?
I have not written any poetry since high school, and I'm going to date myself here, but that was about 25 years ago. Um, so not a lot of them are, and I wrote a lot back then, so not a lot of them are really fresh in my head. But one that always sticks with me, I always kind of did automatic writing. Like I would just put the pen on the paper and I might think of the first line or two, and then I would just kind of blank out and write the rest. And then there would be this poem there, or this spewing of words, however you wanted to look at it. But in my English class, my instructor in, like, I think it was grade 11 or 12 English, insisted that that is not how we write. You have to have a plan and you have to have an outline and you have to like craft it in such a way that you're being extremely thoughtful and aware of what you're doing and do it with purpose and all of this stuff. Um, so I had written a poem following his method, and I hated doing it. It was so foreign to me. It was so different, and it, like, everything in my soul screamed against taking like such a personal thing and applying this formula to it. Um, and whether or not it's one of my better poems, they're all angsty, horrible teenage poems, if we're going to be honest. None of them are super wonderful, but it was about, I grew up witnessing a lot of intimate partner violence. Um, so it was written about my experience in having witnessed that as a young child. And it's always stuck with me, that because I don't think that's something I'd written about it. In writing it through that method, I probably wrote about it a lot more clearly and explicitly. Not explicit like explicit lyrics explicit, but like very clearly, like, this is what I was talking about. Of course, it had some of like the poetry, that things like analogies and metaphors and all of that in it, but it was a lot more to the point and clear what I was talking about than it would have been if I had done it the way I normally wrote. Because when I normally wrote, it was very much about the feelings, and I didn't get into a lot of, like, I didn't write about a lot of happenings. I wrote about a lot of feelings when I would do the automatic writing. So this one had like a balance and a blending of how things felt, but also what was actually happening around that caused those feelings. So it was different than what I was used to, and I think that's why it probably sticks out for me. And I hated the writing process so much. It was hard. I didn't like it.
Thank you for sharing. Another question is, what would you say your biggest struggle with drag and the acceptance not only with yourself but those around you?
Like, so I'm just wondering, like, personally struggle of like my acceptance of those around me in drag, or within the community, or kind of the community's acceptance of drag. I know that came from somebody else, so I'm going to guess that you don't have an elaboration on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think interpret it either way.
However I want. So I'll give a short answer, relatively short answer for each, I guess. My biggest struggle with drag is that I don't follow drag outside of my drag people. Like, so we'll be backstage and all the queens will be talking about this RuPaul queen and that and this and that, and I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are. Or we'll be at a show and people come up and they think because I perform drag, I'm on the up and up of all the pop culture drag, and I'm not. I'm in a couple like all kings groups where, but they're all like a few of them are a little bit well known, but most of them are like local levels. So like when people talk about like the high pop culture, like who's on TV and who's, you know, doing really well known stuff, I don't know most of them. So I'm lost, and that's a struggle for me. Um, so that would be the one. The other, on the other side, the struggle for me, when we look at the whole community, is just the misunderstanding. And I'm being very generous in the term misunderstanding, I think. I do believe that there is definitely some misunderstanding, but I do also believe that a lot of it stems from bigotry, not wanting to understand. I do most of the story times locally. Story times are one of my favorite things. I have two kids myself. I really believe in the importance of stories for youth. So when I'm doing events like that and I hear people talking about how problematic and how harmful we are to the youth, and the other side of me knows the statistics and knows the bleak outlook that it can be for queer youth, um, and just kind of dealing with that um, on a local level, dealing with that on a daily level, worrying that like I have a story time coming up, and a post went out about it, and there was a lot of positivity on the post, but there was also a lot of negativity. um and later that day, and whether it was related or not, I don't know, but later that day, um uh, a trans friend of mine who's very close to me had someone come up to them and say something extremely rude and extremely hurtful. And all I could think was that I'm hopeful. Obviously, like I don't want that happening, but my it's like that. I feel like I'm not being very articulate here, but that that double-edged sword of visibility, the flip side of visibility. So we need visibility so that we can normalize queer identities because they are normal. We need visibility so that queer youth know they can grow up to be happy queer adults. Like it's so important. But on the flip side, I feel like the more visibility that we have, the more that negativity and hatred rises in response, like that cause and effect. So that for me is really hard, and I do struggle with it at times where I know that I know the importance of the visibility, um, and I recognize my privilege in being a mostly, like I'm cis passing. I am mostly cis. I don't, if forced to pick a gender identity, it would probably be along the agender spectrum. I don't really resonate with any of it. Um, but I have privilege with that, and that people look at me and they see female, and that goes just fine. Right. So when I'm out doing things that raise visibility, and that potentially result in negative repercussions for those who are more vulnerable and don't have some of the privileges I have, I do experience some feelings of guilt with that. And I've talked about it with friends in the community, and they're like, but don't feel guilty. It's not your fault. Like you're doing, good things. Don't, but it's there. And I struggle with that. Not all the time, but it does crop up here, now and then.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Um, Someone else asks, was there a person or group of people who inspired you to begin performing?
Yes. 100% the local drag queens and kings. They Paris Gore is my best friend and an incredible performer. It's just Crystal from Sioux, Michigan. Um, my wife, Zephyr Shadow, started performing a few months before I did. So I seen, Crystal and Paris perform, and I actually helped organize a couple shows that they were in. I judged a competition that Paris had organized. Crystal competed in, and I was one of the judges back in 2017. And I watched all these people on stage, and I thought, this is amazing and phenomenal. And someday it would be really cool to be able to do that. And I remember the year that I judged that competition. I got thrown in as a judge in the last minute, and then I was told that I'd have to speak on microphone after the performance. And I was like terrified. I was like, no, I'm not speaking. No, I don't do microphones. Now I'm hosting shows. But yeah, so seeing Paris, seeing It's Just Crystal, seeing Gemini, those local performers doing it. And then when I seen some kings, there were a couple kings, one of them being Zephyr, that I seen perform, and I thought, there is a space for me. And that was that. And I was ready to join and do. So 100% local performers inspired me.
That's awesome. I think this question kind of goes along with that. How was your first time doing drag? How did it feel?
Um, Terrifying, exhilarating, little period of blacking out. I was terrified before I hit the stage. I was doing a single song at Zim's in Sioux, Michigan, because we performed there monthly before COVID. So I had one song to do. I did Country Girl Shake It For Me by Luke Bryan. I was terrified. I thought I was going to vomit. I was ready to chicken out. I said, no, I need to do this. I got on stage. I remember nothing of being on stage. It is a complete blur. I do know that when I hit the stage, I basically just went into autopilot. And then it was like this fever dream happening. And then I was standing on the stage and the audience was applauding and screaming. And I was like on this amazing adrenaline high that I was just like, my heart was racing, and I felt so much exhilaration. And I was like, I need to do this again, like as soon as possible.
That's fantastic. And of course, you did do it again and
I
again.
did. I did it many, many times. And that feeling doesn't ever go, at least for me, it never went away. It might be a little more subtle at times, but every once in a while, I find now that that exhilarated feeling now is more connected with my feelings about a number. So when there's a number that we all have, like, I hate to say that we half-ass our art sometimes, but there's like these numbers that are going to be relatively easy. It's like a high dance number and you have fun. But then you have those numbers that have meaning, or you're taking a risk by doing something you've not done before, whether it be a different genre of music or just something different or something that has a lot of personal meaning. So now I find that big adrenaline rush comes when I do those numbers that I've pushed myself out of my box again and made myself a little uncomfortable, or shared, a more intimate part of myself. Those are the numbers that when they're over, I get that adrenaline rush again. So I try and sprinkle those in as much as I have capacity for.
Nice. How important is community to your work?
Community is the entire reason I do my work. As much as I'm talking about that feeling of exhilaration and the personal journey and being on stage, I love all of that. I really do. I'd be lying if I said I don't do it for the applause. We all do it for applause, right? But that's a bonus to me, right? Like that kind of adrenaline rush and, moment in the spotlight, that is very much a bonus. For me, 100% doing drag is about community building. If we do a show, and I have someone come up to me after the show and tell me that they felt really, really safe in our space that we made. They felt seen. They felt like they were part of something. I've heard we could feel the love in the room. Those types of comments hold more for me than any applause could, because that tells me, we all applause, right? Even if I do a horrible job on stage, it may not be the most hearty applause, but there's going to be applause because people aren't rude. But when someone comes up to you and tells you that you made them feel something really important to them or really good, or you made them feel welcome and safe and loved, or any of those things, that transcends all of that for me. When I do story times or a youth event and I have kids coming up to me after, sometimes I remember one at a story time who they didn't even really care to talk. They wanted to introduce me to their stuffed animal that they had with them. They just, and they were older, like they were probably preteen to early teens, but they just needed to have some connection with another queer person. And they felt seen and they felt that they were welcome and good in that space, and being able to give that to people is amazing to me.
Yeah, that connection is so important. What does pride mean to you?
Um, so many things. Personally, it is, like I said earlier, that my big life change and embracing who I am and coming out very, very quickly in one fell swoop. And kind of like walking away from a life that was relatively comfortable but not fitting for me into a life that is chaotic and wonderful and vibrant and all of those things. That happened on Pride Eve for me. So for me, Pride, I actually just made a post on Pride Eve talking about how, most people use New Year's as a way to like celebrate their milestones and look at how far they've come and say what they're thankful for and all of those things. For me, that's Pride. And just because that falls so beautifully in chronological time with where that was for me in my life. But aside from that, like on the bigger scale, I think pride is so important. And I think we live in a world where it is increasingly important. And we need to be able to balance the joy and the celebration of pride with the memory of not only where we came from, right? Because we look at where we came from and where we are, and we can celebrate progress in some places. But I do think it is really, really important to hold space for those we have lost in the community through the AIDS epidemic, through suicide, through all of these things that impact our community at a greater period. And I think we need to recognize what is happening in the world around us. We need to see the legislation that is coming out of not only the states, but also provinces in Canada that prevents our queer people in general, but especially our trans people and especially our trans youth, prevents them from accessing really important life-saving care and support. And I think that pride is important because we need to balance that. We need to hold space for both of those things. And it can be really hard to do that. And I think a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people, but I think some people, both within and outside of the queer community, you see pride as a celebration, whether that be a celebration that they support and celebrate, or whether that be a celebration that they condemn. They see the celebration. And I think we often forget that at its roots, pride is a way of standing up and saying our community needs more. And we miss that, I think, often. So it's kind of a little bit of a buzzkill, but I would like to see some more focus on that part of pride to recognize the importance of it.
Yeah, I think you said it so well. We have one more question from community. What's the biggest risk song you've chosen to do before, and why was it important for you to do that song?
The biggest risk?
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that one's very, very simple, actually. So we do a Drag Me to Hell competition every year. And so basically for that competition, we have to do a song that is a glamour theme, a song that is a filth theme, so something that is considered filthy or disgusting or whatever, and a song that is considered the horror theme. So our last year was my I think my fourth year competing. I competed the first one. I hosted first year. I competed second year, and I won it third year. I competed fourth year, and I competed fifth year. I am the only person that has been there for 5 years in a row, other than Paris, or people that were there like in audience and stuff. But I've other than hosting the first, or sorry, judging the first year, I've competed 4 times, which nobody else has done. So by the fourth go round, I was just like, I just need to tell something important. Like, I don't care if I win. It's not even, this is my last year and I'm never doing it again. And I need to do something big and important. Um, and our overarching theme for the show was Eat the Rich, which for me is symbolic of the patriarchy, colonization, um, all of these systems that oppress so many groups. And there's this beautiful song by Delilah Bond called Dead Men Don't Rape, and it is discussing the anti-abortion laws, and you know how these people are making laws against other people's bodies. And Lila Bond is an amazing artist within the confines of this idea of anti-abortion laws and abortion rights and bodily autonomy, which so often we see focus only on AFAB female identifying people. And we often don't see those discussions extend to the queer community. When we think about trans men who still have uteruses and could have babies, or non-binary bodies, and all of these extra bodies, not extra bodies, all of these bodies outside of the norm, right? And Delilah Bond in this song manages to call in all of those people and recognize all of those people, anybody with a uterus that can be impacted by this. So I chose to do that song for my filth number. And I made a decision to do a stunt on stage with a coat hanger and a blood pack up a skirt. And I was really nervous about how that would go over because, again, I'm the one that does story times. I'm the one that is, saying, no, we are safe around children. Again, this is a 19+ venue. This is not for children. Any bits of it that went on social media, I asked everybody not to show that little stunt bit, right? I took all those precautions, but it was still a fear that this, there could be people who have had infant and loss in various capacities. And I didn't want it to come across as something that was flippant. I didn't want it to come across as something that was being done for points in a competition. I needed, and I was worried that it would. My hope was that it would come across as speaking a very, very real issue, and doing, like the idea of like protest art in a way that we are shocking, but we are shocking because it is something that needs to be talked about and it is something that needs to be seen. So I was very nervous about that one and how it would go over, but in my heart, I felt like that song would not have impacted the way it did. I mean, the song is amazing, but for me to take that song and bring it to a stage without live singing it, which I can't do, please, you never want to hear that. But to bring it in a way that would put my own art and my own feelings and my own thoughts into it, I felt that was an important part of it. And I had a couple people come up to me afterwards and thank me for doing that number, that it meant a lot to them and they felt really seen by it. So that was definitely my riskiest number, because I was worried it would not go over well. And there was one table that left right after that. They got up and left, the table of older ladies. So I'm thinking it wasn't for them, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It spoke to who I wanted it to speak to, and yeah.
Nice. I'm glad it went mostly well for you. My final question is, what piece of advice do you have for aspiring queer artists, drag or otherwise?
Be unapologetically yourself when it is safe to do so. I hate that I have to put that contingency on the end. But I think it is really important to be yourself, to embrace yourself, and to do so in a way that you're not apologizing to anybody for it, because you don't need to apologize for who you are. And if you don't, and you are being authentic and you're being honest and you're sharing as much as of yourself as you're comfortable and safe to do, that will resonate with people. People will connect to that. I have seen drag performers who are amazing, amazing, choreography, and they've got all the looks and all the choreo, and like way better on those technical aspects than I could ever be. And I've seen them not do the best because the audience doesn't connect with them, because there are parts, they're in their head. They're focused on how to perform versus focusing on being authentic and sharing part of their self with whoever is viewing their art or engaging with their art. So be yourself, but be safe while you're doing it.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for this conversation. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Merci, miigwech, obrigado. Just a reminder that Fringe North 2024 will be from August 21st to the 25th. Please check out our website and all of our social media channels in the description below for more information about Fringe North. And if you want to support all the work our team is doing here, please consider tipping the Fringe. Your support not only helps us, but also supports emerging artists in Northern Arts. Every dollar counts. You can find the link for that below as well. We will be back with another live stream next Thursday evening. We can't wait to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us for the Summer Solstice Social. Celebrate the longest day of the year with us at the Sioux Museum. Enjoy live music and entertainment, the Brewers Jansen Bar, delicious food and snacks, craft stations, and a community mural. And meet some of the Fringe artists and support the Fringe Festival and the Sioux Museum, June 20th. Admission is pay what you can.
Célébrez le jour le plus long de l'année avec nous au Sioux Museum 20 juin. Profitez de la musique et des divertissements, du bar Brave Johnson, des stations d'artisanat et une fresque communautaire. Notes de musique, palette de peinture, rencontrez des artistes de Fringe et soutenez Fringe North. L'entrée est à contribution libre. Nous recommandons $10.
For more information, visit our website at siouxfringe.com or find us on social media, Fringe Sioux.
Pour plus d'informations, visitez notre site web à siouxfringe.com ou retrouvez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux Fringe Sioux. Nous avons hâte de vous y voir.
Can't wait to see you there. June 20th, starting at 7 p.m.
Le 20 juin à partir de 19h.